Could you talk a little bit about Walnut Square and what kind of memories you have of it?
Well, Walnut Square, the most important, my brother Jeff went here, my younger brother Jeff went here, but more importantly, my family, my daughter Caitlin started her school career here as kindergarten, first grade, second grade. She has some great teachers. There have been, while we got involved, one of my former teachers was the head teacher at this school, Albertine Sharon. She was a great person. This community in this immediate area of this school really rallies around this facility. People are very much involved, and my daughter Caitlin went here, who now is 11. We're hoping my daughter Emily goes here, so I'm a real advocate for this school to stay open in our current fiscal crisis that we face. But the size of the school, I think, dictates that it should stay open. It has 8 full classrooms. It has the ability for an art room. In the winter of '98 and '99, the PTO and a group of my friends also put a computer lab up on the 3rd floor, and it has a library. So it indicates that it's a school that has some long-term capabilities for use. So it's been a very important part of my life and the lives of my children. So I'm looking forward to that continuing. This is the working mechanism of the Walnut Square Tower Clock. This is the clock mechanism that we restored as a committee back in 1998. It was a 6-year project. We started initially as a PTO project under the direction of Sue Riley, Lisa DeMeo, and in 1993 I got on board the committee in November with Andy Zizopoulos and myself, and we raised $155,000 to rehab the clock tower, the faces, the dials, all the mechanisms in between. And we have also set aside an endowment fund which will take care of the maintenance forever so that the burden does not fall on the city.
That's great. Could you give us a little bit of a tutorial as to how this works and, mention some of the interesting points about the clock?
Great. Well, this is an E. Howard clock. It's 100 years old as of September of 1998. So what it is the way the clock works is you have a weighted system on the main drive drum, which is pulled with a series of cables and pulleys. What happens is you have an escape wheel at the top that releases the energy created by the weights and controls the pace by the pendulum. So the arc of the pendulum controls the release of the energy created by the weights in the escapement, which turns all the pinions and the gears, which operates the main mechanism, which has a drive shaft that goes up 30 feet to behind the dial faces, with a universal joint that operates all 4 dials simultaneously to work the clock. Typically what happens, if you look at these clocks, they are typically up behind the dials on the tower. But what we did here for the public and the citizens of the city of Haverhill to be able to see, we brought it down to the 3rd floor of the school so that if there is a tour group that would like to see something like this, we have a website that they can get a look right here rather than having to climb the tower, which no one for 100 years was able to see this clock tower.
That's a great idea, and it's a great learning tool as well.
It is, because the clock, it helps with math, with numbers, with weights, geometry, because it's all part of the whole process of making the mechanism work. And now all the weight systems that you have seen in the sides of the room, that is what operates the clock and the strike mechanism on the other side, which is for the bell. There are 2 separate entities here that work as one, the strike mechanism and the time mechanism, and they work every hour to strike the hour of the day.
Now, you were explaining to me earlier, as we just got here, how that works. It's like a 30-day, it goes all the way down the stairs?
Well, actually, originally when the clock was done, the channels which you saw were from the top of the tower to the basement floor. And they had a pulley that they would come in once a month and rewind the weights back up. One person was responsible. And actually, Bill Kluber, who was our city auditor, his father, the clock stopped operating in 1961. But what we did in this clock, and the Clock Society approves of it, we have an auto wind system on this clock. These towers are only 8 feet tall, but they allow to go to the bottom and they trip a lever and that lever brings the weight back to the top. So it's always under a load rather than losing that precious time, I guess, in rewinding the clock. So if there's a lever at the bottom of those towers that allows it to reload and gear-operated rewind systems that do
Son of a gun.
it, so people don't have to worry about it.
That's great. And you spent 6 years on this project, you were saying.
Yes, the committee spent 6 years from the initial onset of the fundraising by Sue Riley and Lisa DeMeo in the Walnut Square PTO. And then for the centennial anniversary on September 19th, 1998, the clock was rededicated and so was the school. The amazing part about it was the clock restoration itself was $78,000. The rest of the maintenance was done through volunteer programs and myself, basically with the assistance of the Clock Tower Foundation and a lot of friends and a lot of committed time. We restored the whole structure. I coordinated the project of that, while the fundraising efforts were led by Lisa DeMeo, Sue Riley, and Andy Zizopoulos. And Andy Zizopoulos still to this day writes grants and receives funds to help with the maintenance so that burden does not fall on the city's responsibility.
Excellent. And how much labor would you say there was on this?
Well, we removed the clock. We had to have 50% of the funding source pulled together before the city would allow us to take the clock out. And that was in September of '97.
Right.
Around April, I really started in earnest with the committee doing the construction project. And at 1 o'clock on September 18th, we were gluing down the rug that is in this room, getting ready for the next day's dedication ceremony. So it went full force from April until September, probably 4 hours a night, maybe 5, all day Saturdays typically, and usually a half a day Sunday. It's quite a project.
What did your wife think of that?
My wife and some of the husbands and some of the other wives were all considered clock widows and widowers because we were living here almost, quite frankly, to do this project.
Yeah.
It really worked well. There aren't a lot of E. Howard clocks left. This community has 3 left when it originally had 5. There's the one in Monument Square, there's our in Walnut Square, and there's one in Ward Hill, at the church in Ward Hill. There were 2 others. One was in Riverside, and the other was at City Hall, the old City Hall.
Yeah.
So now, this one will be cared for forever and taken care of through a perpetual maintenance fund.